Hi there, everyone. Welcome to The Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's September 12th. How's your garden doing? Is there something blooming that's stealing your heart? In my garden, I'm especially enjoying the yellow wax bells, or Kirengeshoma palmata. Heidi Heiland installed these for me last summer during my garden renovation. They're right up by my front door in a north-facing garden, and I see them every day as I go in and out the front door. I have to say that this plant has slowly won my heart. All season, I watched this perennial grow into a clump of maple leaves. The leaves look just like the leaves on a maple tree, but they're a little smaller and lighter green. Then as August comes on, you begin to see these pendulous, pale yellow buds. They're quite enchanting, and they just hang there through September. Fine Gardening describes the plant this way. This hardy, clump-forming perennial bears pendulous, shuttlecock-shaped, soft yellow blossoms in late August and early September. The plant has attractive, glossy, 4 to 8 inch long maple leaf-shaped leaves. Mine are a little smaller. And it lists some noteworthy characteristics, saying that it's native to the mountainous areas of Japan and Korea, and that it survives the winters of Zone 5, as well as winters of warmer climates. Now, I'm in Zone 4, and it seemed to survive here just fine. But then under care, it says, grow in rich, moist, acidic soil and shelter from the wind. And my front garden meets all of those requirements. So I think I'm providing the perfect microclimate, which is how I can get away with this Zone 5 perennial. Anyway, when you think of yellow blossoms in the garden, that spectrum can be pretty wide. I'm personally not a fan of the super bright yellows, and I end up eliminating flowers if their bloom is too jarring to my taste. But I've decided that the soft pastel, creamy, buttery yellow of yellow wax bells has to be, hands down, my favorite yellow in the garden. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of America's first pteridologist, Daniel Cady Eaton, who was born on this day in 1834. A pteridologist is a person who studies ferns. The botanist Charles Frost told a charming story about how Eaton had fallen in love with ferns after going on a walk with his fiancé. At some point on their walk, she had apparently called Eaton's attention to a beautiful fern, and Eaton's desire to please her was the origin of his hyper-focus on ferns. Eaton was born into a botanical family. His grandfather, Amos, was an American pioneer in the field of botany. Amos actually was a teacher to John Torrey. For his undergraduate work, Eaton went to Yale and then received another degree at Harvard. While he was in college, he excelled in Latin, and he loved and used the language for the rest of his life. Eaton studied under Asa Gray. Daniel and Asa were kindred spirits, so much so that Eaton dedicated his work on the ferns of the United States of America to his beloved instructor, Asa Gray. And today is the birthday of the landscape architect Arthur Shurcliff, who was born on this day in 1870. Shurcliff's path to landscape architecture was not clear-cut. His dad had been a successful businessman. Arthur was supposed to follow in his dad's footsteps and become a mechanical engineer. But after receiving his degree from MIT, the field of landscape architecture was making waves thanks to the Olmsteds, Charles Eliot, and the Chicago World's Fair. Since no formal degree programs existed at the time, Shurcliff cobbled together his own curriculum at the Lawrence School of Science at Harvard. All his life, Shurcliff loved being outside. He loved camping and canoeing. He loved scenery. He loved sketching the landscape. Looking back on his decision to pursue landscape architecture, Shurcliff remembered, "All led me away from mechanics toward scenery, toward planning and construction for the scenes of daily life." In 1904, Shurcliff opened his own firm. Shurcliff designed recreational spaces in and around Boston, like the Kelleher Rose Garden, the Washington Garden at Old North, and the park Back Bay Fens. But Shurcliff will forever be remembered for the work he did at Colonial Williamsburg. It was the first time an entire American community was to be restored. John D. Rockefeller financed the project. Shurcliff had over 30 years of experience behind him when he officially started the project on St. Patrick's Day. And he didn't just bring his landscape architecture skills. He brought everything he had, his training and background in engineering, his meticulousness, and his ability to get things done through his personal clarity, energy, and charm. It wasn't just the buildings that needed restoration. It was the land, the paths and the streets, the gardens and the green spaces. It required tremendous research to restore it all. It took Shurcliff 13 years to finish the project, but once it was done, Shurcliff had redefined Williamsburg, helping it to lay claim to its past and ensuring that Colonial Revival garden design found legitimacy in 20th century landscape architecture. Today in 1930, Dr. Ernest H. Wilson, also known as Chinese Wilson, spoke at a banquet room at the Hotel Bond as part of the Connecticut Horticultural Exposition. Wilson's speech drew loud applause when he predicted that people would have more and more spare time in the future. His advice on how to handle it was simple: teach the youth the joys of gardening. And it was on this day in 1959 that the Illustrated London News shared a fantastic image of Agatha Christie and her gardener holding large trophies for their entries at the Brixham Horticultural Flower Show. In the photo, Christie's gardener is grasping 3 trophies, and Agatha, wearing a bright floral dress, looks pleased as punch to be holding a large trophy of her own. No doubt the entries were from Greenway, which Agatha described as the loveliest place in the world. Agatha set 2 of her novels at Greenway, 5 Little Pigs and Dead Man's Folly. Greenway was her holiday home along the River Dart. Greenway is now managed by the National Trust. It's a great place to visit. And British Heritage Travel says the house itself is surrounded by gardens, walled gardens, conservatories, orchards, and woodland gardens. Through the spring months on the English Riviera, the climate produces an early profusion of rhododendron, camellias, and the like. The gardens at Greenway have been open to the public since 2003. They are elegant and well tended. In unearthed words, all week long, the Daily Gardener has been sharing quotes from the author Beverly Nichols, who was born on Monday of this week in 1898. Nichols wrote over 60 books, but he's best remembered for his gardening books, which include not one, not two, but 3 trilogies. His final trilogy began with the book called Garden Open Today, which was first published in 1963. This trilogy was different than his first 2 because this series is about imparting wisdom. By the time Nichols wrote this trilogy, he had been gardening for 30 years, and he was attempting to pour out all of that hard-won expertise and passion into this final series. Here's my favorite quote from Garden Open Today. The design a gardener imposes must be constantly modified and sometimes totally transformed by a hand stronger than his own, the hand of nature. Maybe the art of gardening is simply the knowledge of how to hold that hand and how to clasp it in friendship. Today's book recommendation is Lemon Herbs by Ellen Spector Platt. My yellow wax bells reminded me to recommend this book to you guys. This lovely lemony resource came out in 2002, and the book features only herbs with lemon scents and flavors, 18 of them, including lemon catmint, which I didn't realize was a thing, citronella grass, lemon eucalyptus, lemon geranium, and lemon verbena, just to name a handful. Best of all, the book includes ideas for using lemon herbs in potpourri, wreaths, and lemon-flavored recipes for salads, entrees, and desserts. Today's garden chore is to tend to your hanging baskets to keep them looking sharp. If you didn't go with something super easy like a Boston fern, mine are about 3 feet across right now thanks to the drip irrigation, your hanging baskets could likely use a tune-up. Sometimes we forget about hanging baskets, especially if they are filled with non-stop bloomers. That being said, they often benefit from a little attention this time of year. Cut them back a bit, clean up the spent flowers, evaluate their appropriateness for the change of seasons. You can easily fill blank spots with transitional items to help you ease into fall. And don't forget that little mini pumpkins or gourds or even birds' nests make awesome spot fillers. And permanent stems can add a little extra color without any work at all. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. In 1843, the New England farmer reported a record-sized apple from a Mr. John Waite, and it definitely got their attention, weighing in at 18 ounces and measuring 14 inches in circumference. The article ended with this question posed by a Philadelphia editor: how many such apples would it take to make a barrel of cider. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.